Good evening, this is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Social media and politics, and in the 2013 elections looms and loomed large. Although it didn't necessarily make or unmake candidates, get candidates elected or make them lose, it is still a force to reckon with, waiting for its full potential to be harnessed. On Twitter and Facebook, discussions on issues, replies, retweets, shares, and posts took center stage, as does social media tonight here on News.PH. Let me begin by saying I literally poached off or borrowed na lang the PCIJ's idea of their forum that was held yesterday, taking stock, taking control, elections and expression in the online world, which I wished I had been able to attend, but I wasn't able to attend. So the same people who are with us tonight were in that forum yesterday. Short of asking you to replicate exactly what you said, let's try and trim it down to half an hour. We welcome tonight a very familiar face in journalism, broadcast journalism, Ed Lingal, Multimedia Director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. He's at Ed Lingal on Twitter, but you're more active on...
Not very active on
Facebook.
Twitter. I tweet mostly for PCIJ,
For PCIJ.
as the Multimedia Director.
Yeah, okay. Malutikia is at Maltic on Twitter, and she is, of course, Publicus Asia. Why isn't it there? Blogger Juned Sonido of Baratillo Pamphlet.
Yeah.
He's Juned on Twitter, Juned, at Juned on Twitter. And for the first time, there's always a first time for everything, Pierre Tito Galia of democracy.net.ph, whose Twitter handle is Jester in Exile. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's begin first, Ed, with the idea for that forum of PCIJ. Was it high time that we devote an entire day's discussion?
It wasn't even enough.
no.
The discussion was pretty lively yesterday, and there was a lot of agreement to disagree at certain points. And there was still a lot to be talked about.
There's a lot.
Really a lot to be talked about.
Yeah.
Because we still haven't seen the full potential of how far we can push this.
Yeah, o sige, let's siguro scratch the surface tonight, maybe go beyond what you talked about yesterday. So let's begin with 2013. No? Social media didn't determine the 2013 elections, right? You had people who were not particularly popular on social media but still got elected anyway. You had people who were very popular on social media, did not get elected or whatever. No? Is that because, what is it, internet penetration is low? What is the challenge? What's the problem here, Junel?
Well, my theory there is based on the internet penetration rate, which basically we have it around at now 29 to 30%.
Okay, of the total population.
Of the total population.
Okay.
Whereas
and the numbers are what are the numbers for total population?
we have around 200 to 170. What's at least 30%? So we have around 70 million not yet connected on the net. Now, let me just qualify that in terms of social network interaction. Social network interaction or social network penetration, which means percentage of people active on the net, we have around 70 to 80%, which is quite high.
Yeah.
But you have to remember the internet penetration is at most 30%. The implication of this is that 30% of our people are much engaged online, and very much skilled. Let's say they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on Pinterest, they engage in watching videos. That's good, but it's at 30%.
Yeah.
So basically, like the movie said, it is as good as it gets. With a 30% internet penetration rate.
I'd like to add to that.
Yeah.
From the 30%, we're not even talking about connectivity of what we have, wherein we're able to be connected 24/7. There's also the internet cafes, right?
Right. Where a lot of the...
Yes, the
Sa
bulk of
probinsya.
our internet connectivity is from those who use internet cafes, not really those who have their own connections at home. So from that 30%, we cannot say that those who are truly engaged are engaged consistently throughout the day. It's
Yeah.
probably once a day,
Okay.
maybe 3 times a week.
Yung internet cafe, hindi lang ito yung nasa Metro Manila. The ones we see sa
Yes.
neighborhood.
Yes.
Ano, no?
Neighborhood.
We have a term. We had a term in the internet cafe business. There's the corporate side, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the normal internet cafe, which usually has 30 to 50 PCs. Then you have the mini cafes, which are around 10 to 20. Then you have the mom and pop micro cafes, which are can be as small as 1 to 5 PCs. Yes. A lot of these are those that are in the houses of people or OFW families and whatnot. So these are, as again, to use Juned's term, as good as it gets when it comes to Philippine online presence.
Yeah. And that's to be blamed on, not blamed, but
Well,
that's,
it's an economy of sorts.
Yeah,
It's what we can afford. So, for example, I think the lowest we can afford is the piso net.
Yes.
On the piso internet. Basically, when you add a few pesos, you get internet access. So it's also a term of it's economics.
yeah.
The internet is a good place to be in. You can surf, you can replicate things, but it demands a high cost in terms of entry, high cost in terms of gadgets to enter, in terms of computers, in terms of
connectivity, no?
but
Wi-Fi.
connectivity. But once you're connected, the costs will dramatically go down because it's cheaper when you're connected. And it's but in terms of that, you need access. So there are two things we have here: access, which is determined by your economic condition, kung ano yung kita mo, kung ano yung ano mo.
Yeah.
And also, it's also afterward what determines it right now, as we see, is speed. Some of us can afford an LTE, some can afford a 3G, and then you still have people who have prepaid. So it
I
differs.
thought you were going to say dial-up.
A dial-up, I don't know kung may dial-up wala na. Pero,
Okay.
yun ang even in some internet shops, you can actually stratify it. Some have corporate accounts, like they're in ties with corporations. Some, you'll be surprised, there's a report, they use dongles.
Yes.
Dongles.
For the internet shop.
Dongles for the internet shop.
Yeah, yeah.
So which means the connections
Really slow.
can be very slow.
Yes.
Which means, for example, if you have let's say a Jack and Reel video, which is 6 minutes, and you have someone viewing it, it'll take forever for him just to
Watch
to
the video.
watch it.
Okay.
And which means it takes more effort to do it. And the thing with the internet is, in order to become successful, it has to follow the path of least effort. I mean,
Yeah.
if you click on it, you have to get
Kailangan
it
instant.
kagad.
Oo.
Otherwise,
You lose your audience.
you lose
diba?
your audience. Tapos
Yeah.
ano yun if you're in an internet cafe, you'll see it You spend a day there, or even weeks, just going back and forth. I know someone who went to the internet shop every other day to see how it is to live within an internet shop.
Yeah.
Hindi siya nakatiis. After 2 weeks, nag-cheat siya and went to the office to use the email. It's a world in itself.
Yeah. And those in the internet shops, they play games more than they
Yes.
are engaging on. Ganun ba yun?
It also affects using the internet cafes also affects your behavior online. Kasi if everybody's playing Dota around you or playing Counter-Strike or Battlefield and the speakers are on, it's very difficult to really do research. So some people just go on Facebook, maybe go on YouTube and a little bit of that and then play games.
Yeah. Oo. Yung 70% of the 30%.
Yeah.
Ano?
Yeah.
Meron bang stratification like
May-
A, B, C, D, E?
Meron
ba?
silang study ginawa a few years ago in relation, they were preparing for the mobile, for a broadband study sa United Nations.
Okay.
They found out that majority of internet users are the youth between 18 to 24, 18 to 20. Then you have, which is around mga 40%. Then you had, as it goes up, it becomes 30%, 20%, until you reach the age of 40. Pag 40 up to 60, nasa 5%, 5 to 10% ang
Yeah.
nila.
What about A, B, C, D, E?
ABCD, more or less, within urban areas, mas mataas talaga yung internet penetration rate. And kasi in urban areas, you have to consider also the factor na nakakahanap ka ng ways to get online or to go online. One thing is if you work for a company. You have especially if you work for a call center, you have internet You can ask any company. It has always been an issue on the way you use internet in the office.
Yes.
That's also the reason why you have
Oy,
small.
ba't ka nagfe-Facebook?
Yeah, that's why you have mirrors.
But most of us, use that for work, di ba? Facebook and Twitter.
We'd like to think.
We'd like to think.
Yeah, we do, di ba?
Pero meron siyang when it comes, it's an interesting study kasi at a certain point sa elementary in the provinces, mas marami yung boys na gumagamit ng internet.
Pinapagamit muna.
Ang boys kasi yung girls hindi kaagad. This is a study din sa education study. Yung boys because of kasi sa provinces, even sa local neighborhoods, the internet becomes your de facto child center.
Yes.
You have 15 pesos, you have 5 pesos. Most of the kids will go to the internet shop and spend their time there.
Yeah.
Even if you're, let's say, how much is, let's say, a high-end internet shop is around 30 pesos to 60 pesos.
About with aircon.
It's cheaper than a movie.
Yes.
So, it's
Oo.
cheaper than a movie.
Oo.
And you can actually, if the internet connection is fast, you can watch a movie there. You can finish whatever movie you want, which na-upload. So,
okay.
it has become, kumbaga, a reflection of our society. Kung ano yung ma-afford mo, doon ka punta.
Yeah.
That's, you get people playing games. On the other hand, on one side, you have the more quiet sections sa mga mas malaki, where you see people talking to their relatives. Tapos minsan, apat sila in front of the computer.
For the webcam.
For the webcam. Tapos you have people doing their resumes.
Yeah.
Yan. Tapos kay-Facebook.
Yes.
Pero ang reason nila pupunta ron to do resumes, to do business,
Play a game.
to talk on Skype.
Right.
Kaya sila doon.
Okay. And this is why Ed said kulang nga yung isang araw sa forum,
Yeah.
Kulang na 230 minutes sa atin. But
I'd
anyway,
like to add
yeah.
also to
Oh,
what
okay.
Juned was saying in so far as demographics are concerned, right? If you go to an internet cafe in the rural areas, the heavy users are the kids from 12 till 17 and so on. And they spend a lot because they play, apart from the games that are only on the PC, on the LAN, they also play online games, which is a fairly big industry in the Philippines already as it is. And then after that, there becomes a slight drop in the age use, the early 20s and so on and so forth. They may not be using it because they're already having some sort of part-time jobs, vocationals and things like that. But then it picks up again in the 25 to 30 range for those who use the resumes, right, and so on.
Yeah.
And there are also those, you will notice these groups wherein there's a very disparate age, young kids plus somebody older, because they're talking to somebody on Skype. So this is reflective again of what Juned says. It's an economic factor.
Yeah.
But this behavior is replicated quite a bit across all classes because you take away the model from the internet shop, it becomes the same model in somebody's house, especially if it's an OFW residence.
Yeah, okay. And this is how we should be viewing social media and politics. It's not like candidates who are on social media have a captive audience, because the captive audience is not captive, diba? You have so many other, okay. Sorry to jump, no? So we can't measure social media's impact on the 2013 elections, Malu.
Well, you can probably measure it in terms of the numbers of following, etc. But those are very superficial way of measuring it because it doesn't measure engagement.
Yeah.
It doesn't measure authenticity of the communication from the candidate to the target audience.
Yeah.
I think we do not have the demogs and the psychographics of social media users in the country. So whenever a candidate plans to engage, it's really planning based on ito yung nangyari doon eh. This might be successful. A lot of candidates will always invoke the Obama experience, but you cannot replicate it here simply because the Obama experience wasn't used as only for communication.
Correct.
It was used to mobilize, it was used to recruit,
Right.
it was even being used to ensure that the ground
Yes.
is there. Here you can. That is why it's very superficial, because some candidates, they feel that they were able to connect because I have so many followers. But that doesn't translate. If you do an analysis of the followers, it's the same base. So hindi ka lumalaki.
So these are people who will already
Who
vote
is
for
your
them.
base?
No?
Yeah. So
Ito
the
na yung-
idea is, if you go to social media, you extend. You enlarge that base. So if you are able to enlarge that base only by 3%, I don't think the investment is good, because you will be using ads to attract. So the cost benefit of it is not that well studied, simply because still there is no metric to measure it.
Okay.
I think 2016 there would be a burst. If we are able to, thanks to PCIJ, they started with that round table thing yesterday, because now people are conscious. Authenticity pala. Engagement pala. Ano ba yung way of measuring it? So you can put together probably case studies who did well. Some people were saying, because of the infographics, ang daming nagla-like. But that's because of the color and the design, not necessarily the content.
Not the issue. Okay, okay. So it's also important. A good social media campaign is not the campaign itself. Also,
Well,
ang daming.
It is a good way of connecting if you're targeting the young. It's a good way of connecting. Young, not necessarily DE. Because your language, when communicating with DE, will have to change when you're communicating with educated na young.
Okay, we'll have to take a short break. News.PH will be right back. Talking about social media. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH on the Solar News channel. We're talking about social media. Our guests, I'm Pia Hontiveros. Our guests, Ed Lingal, I forgot. Maluti Kia, Juned Sonido, and Pierre Tito Galia, who is Jester in Exile, okay? Better known as Jester in Exile on Twitter. Okay, so yung social media campaign will have to be connected to the ground work.
And there's got to be really a formula where, tama si Pierre. Si Pierre yesterday was talking about the language. What kind of language do you use? Strategies and campaigners would probably use Tagalog and English, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're catching the Visayan. Yung endearment will have to change depending on the way you communicate. So you really have to put together a formula. I know there was a candidate who brought in foreign consultants from abroad, from the Obama campaign. And they
At
were,
nanalo ang kandidato na yun.
nanalo yung kandidatong yun. Not because of the social media.
But because,
They did something else. And the consultants were kind of aghast at the how we use social media.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah,
Well done.
for them it's like primary step.
Yes.
Because there's so much that you can use, and we were asking, how do you do that? They were talking in terms of APIs, in terms of
APIs?
Those are applications that you can use.
Okay.
Well, but really, that is contingent to your ground having the smartphone,
Correct.
your ground.
Correct.
So maraming changes, maraming nuances.
Yeah, sa atin nga ang
Sa-
penetration.
Tingnan mo na lang sa Comelec, di ba? Ang transmitter may problema.
Yeah, tsaka yung kasi, even with yung focus on the trending,
Oh, right.
also with the number of followers, this can actually be faked.
Yes, they can be.
I mean, so there's this.
How is it fake?
Oh, it's fake. You can
Ano
buy.
yan?
You can buy followers.
How do you buy followers?
They're,
buy
they're
followers?
online.
Online.
Yeah, I mean,
You go to a website and
They
buy.
offer it to you. Sometimes, pag kunyari you're on Twitter, I can increase the number of your followers. You just go to this site.
Then you
Or
pay them in
Then you
Bitcoin.
pay them. Then your followers jump to from, let's say, 500 to 5,000.
But these are not real followers.
No,
These
they
are-
don't.
No.
They're
These are-
accounts.
No, these
Their
are
Accounts,
Their accounts.
created by the
whoever.
one
Whoever.
who
One
offered.
selling.
The one selling.
Yes. It could be, you can have one person open 100 accounts.
Takes you a minute.
And then takes you a minute. That's parang, and he can actually do a algorithm of software
Right.
that can make all these accounts interactive. So
Right.
they can issue kunyari mga tweets na I like so and so, I like
Right.
this and that. Then you say, this guy has 5,000, 10,000 followers, they're active. So if you have fake followers, it doesn't translate to actual
No.
voters as well.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Bots are not
Bots.
humans.
It does-
Bots.
Yeah, bots.
Bots are not humans.
Yeah, spelling pa lang.
Then they have a study this is a state, sa Facebook. People who go back to when they like a page, ang percentage is only 2%.
Less. About
2% only na ano. So you can imagine, for example, if siguro your social media consultant, they offer, we can boost your followers to 5,000, 10,000. We can put their Facebook page to have 1,000 likes. Ang katapat lang nun as either a software program or one of the strategies is to have a raffle
Yeah.
on the Facebook page. You like this Facebook page, we'll give you an iPad.
Right.
Magkano
That sounds like
Sounds
Yes.
familiar.
Yeah.
It sounds family. Parang may gumawa niyan. Okay. What else is the yung dark side of
The dark
social media?
side. The dark side really has to do with propaganda.
Itong mga post na hindi
Yun yung
totoo.
negative.
Oo.
We call it contrast, not negative. But it's essentially negative. There were several that were executed online in May 2013.
Which ones? Can you
One of which
specify?
is the Binay. The Binay color, look, etc. The other one was the WikiLeaks of Jack, against Jack Enrile. Then the others were, some of the propaganda were like launched in online and picked by traditional. Some were launched traditional
Yes.
and then picked by online. The problem there is for the candidate is, do you even respond? Kasi you're not even sure where it's coming
Yeah,
from.
right,
I mean, it's coming from a troll account like Angkuring, and even if you drill the Angkuring site, you don't see any information about that person. Then it is really propaganda. Unfortunately, there were several who
bit the bait,
promoted
no?
the propaganda and the
By
propaganda.
reply, by reacting.
Yeah, and it became part of the news cycle. So naging totoo.
Yeah. Oh.
So that's a
And,
problem there.
ano
Balu
naging-
has an
yeah.
interesting take on the Binay story.
Which
Should we go into that?
hindi yung kay Binay. Essentially, when we studied the way the social media side of that strategy was done, if you look at Nancy Binay never talked. People saw her. When they saw her, it's the daughter. Pagdating sa online, it was really very derogatory. The derogatory was based on the physical and the ability to debate, intellectual. And there were insults thrown. My team sense is that that was propaganda played by their side as a
Their own
strategy.
Their own side.
Okay.
As a
okay.
strategy
It's clever.
Yeah.
to
It worked, no?
Yeah,
It really worked.
It really made Nancy Binay underdog. And if you again analyze when the hit came, it came towards the end of the campaign where everybody was, focusing on something else. Everyone were like hitting Binay with, hindi ka marunong, hindi ka nakapagdebate, blah, blah, blah. And Viola, after winning, she does a media offensive
Right,
by
right.
going to
Giving all
the-
these interviews.
Yeah,
yes.
and really showing her mettle, and she's not like that. So we were thinking, who would throw the what do you call this? Who would throw the mud, promoting that side, and then suddenly twist and say, this is Nancy Binay. Give her time. This is,
Yeah.
she's willing to learn. She's willing to go. So my sense was it was a propaganda launch
Yeah.
as a tactic for the strategy to sustain her until the end.
Okay.
The end
okay.
meaning 2016.
No, the end until
Meaning 2013. Teka muna. Ed, sandali.
Wala pa
Ano
tayo
yung
sa-
challenges sa you as journalists, di ba?
In the mainstream,
Social
you mean,
media.
or
in the mainstream, and then because we use social media, di ba, to get information, to
Yeah.
crowdsource, etc.
It's very interesting. It came out several times yesterday that the newsrooms have picked up several times on several issues that have come up in social media. Sometimes responsibly, sometimes irresponsibly, and I guess to us that is a challenge, especially when it's really noisy in social media and it looks really sexy and exciting. You have to take a second look at whether you want to step in and take it to the newsroom, because that brings it to a whole new level altogether.
So what do you say? The keyword's restraint?
I'm sorry.
Restraint? Is the
Restraint and self-control, especially if you're talking about the mainstream media. I mean, social media in itself it's like a big forum. You have to be careful what you pick out of that forum and turn into something that you would say to be newsworthy or because that elevates everything to a different level altogether.
Okay. Before we go into 2016, just a konting cambio lang, no? Dahil there was a request, and sana we can talk about social media outside of politics, diba? There was. Let's breeze through it lang, because there are really bright spots naman, diba? There was Ondoy, diba? There was even the MMDA with Yves Gonzalez.
We can mention a few more.
Even legislation.
Legislation. Do you crowdsource legislation?
What do you call this? The libel?
Cybercrime?
Okay,
That started
like for instance, bright spots in Philippine social media. We can begin by RescuePH, #RescuePH, right? So Ondoy, Habagat, and all those. And in fact, the government is tapping them now directly to using them directly as an additional arm to the NDR MMC. Yes. Then you have crowdfunding, if you remember. People gave money. This was sourced online. No. This was for the blood, the blood money of the blood money of Saudi.
Okay.
That was a example of a direct crowdfunding initiative. Can we have your money to save this guy? So it's crowdfunding. Then crowdsourcing, apart from all those that have already been done, the Magna Carta for Philippine Internet Freedom by democracy.net.ph ended up being filed as Senate Bill 3327 by Miriam Santiago as a direct response against the very poorly crafted RA 10175, the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. So yes, social media by Filipinos, a lot of it has been used positively. But again, the use has always been riotous.
Yeah,
Riotous.
I think kasi with social media, like we take in examples like sa Ondoy, we take examples like Rock Ed, and all the others. You'll see there's a common link there. Social media was used as a channel to coordinate with a community. And this, for example, Rockhead had a community, and it actually touched people online, and it fused it with their offline community.
Yes.
In other words, if you had something to donate, Rockhead had centers where you can go. So you put it there, people were actually involved. Usually with social media, it becomes more successful when you have a community involved with it.
Less government.
Well, yeah. When you have people joining and actually seeing each other or establishing an offline connection. When you establish an offline connection, it becomes very effective. Ondoy, when people...
It becomes real.
Yes.
It becomes 3D. It's like
3D.
yesterday it was a gang.
It's a gang.
Gang, Badoy.
Kasi you see that even during the elections, you had concerned citizens monitoring the elections.
Yes.
And they used every trick in social media to do it. Some were successful, some were not. But the success story in itself was they were able to gel together. They were able to, in Mindanao, they were able to join forces in order to monitor. And their main problem was technology, but in the process, they were able to gel. One vote was able to interview candidates. And you had people volunteering to do that.
Right.
I think those things should be documented.
Yeah.
The
some
problem
point
with
Are
that-
they documented?
I
Are they
think so.
wala?
Even
Wala.
for relief operation, for legislation.
So I guess
Those
you have
things
your
have to be-
jobs cut out for you.
We don't know.
There's a good
Yeah.
example in the UK, a different kind of crowdsourcing. The Guardian of UK in 2009, they were able to acquire several thousand volumes of expense reports of their parliamentarians. Of course, these were too much for the Guardian itself to sift through. So what they did was they put everything online, and they told people, You have your own parliamentarians. You check your parliamentarians' expenses and you tell us what you find.
Yes.
And that's what
Yeah.
they did. So
Yes.
people started downloading the expense reports of their own district, and then they went to them and then they reported back to the Guardian. Look at this. He spent so much of public funds to carpet his yacht. So
Okay.
the Guardian knew where to look now.
Yeah.
That was a good way of crowdsourcing.
This is like Jesse Robredo, huh? But so there's a good side to social media, and it shows our good sides there. But then,
Yes.
okay, wait, let's round it out long with so 2016, no. What are we going to see? Parang there's too short ang time before 2016 to bring in the rest of
The
Philippines.
of
full
the
Philippines.
not online
Yes.
Yeah.
Philippines,
You know, there's a
right?
problem because the Philippines, this government is a party to the Open Government Protocol
OpenGov, yes.
of the US.
Yes.
And we got a huge grant through the Millennium Challenge Fund to start this process to be adopted in the Philippines.
Okay.
But I don't think that is reaching any, what do you call this, a turning point in governance. Because open government means there is FOI. You cannot do open government without
Without it,
FOI.
yes.
That's why. Open government would also require
DICT.
a two-way
Yeah.
link between in the US all members they have their Twitter accounts.
Yes.
So they
Social media,
the constituent can readily communicate, can
Okay.
readily say what's the problem, can readily say, sir, why are you helping in this bill?
Right.
So that heightens
or do the
accountability.
PDAF.
Okay.
Diba?
Okay.
So there are several ways that we can do it if the government so decides, okay, I embrace already the open government protocol, I want this to happen. But the FOI has to pass because that is
Okay.
the basis of all this transparency and the use of social media.
And then, Pierre, you
Yes.
mentioned the ICT,
So there's
Department of
there's the
Information.
FOI, which is
Yeah.
policy of being open in terms of the information, but we need the infrastructure to transmit this information up to the rural areas. So we do need a body, perhaps the DICT, to ensure that infrastructure and other policies related to developing our ICT technology reaches every corner and not just centered on the urban
Yeah,
areas.
let me just say, Department of Information and Communications
Yes.
Technology.
Or
which
do
we
a
should have.
PPP.
Oh, it does. That's part
Diba?
of it
Do a
naman.
PP
But,
on the
but
last mile
technology is
thing.
getting cheaper anyway.
Well, yes.
I mean,
But that's policy.
policy.
It's policy. It's not
Okay.
necessarily about how expensive it is, but how willing is our government to channel effort into
Okay.
these things.
okay, on 2016, Pierre, you said, and I quote, I think the next major battleground 2016 polls will be the phones.
Oh yes,
Really?
yes, yes. We will go back to the phones.
Uh-huh.
It's not as if
SMS?
and MMS,
Ah.
SMS,
Ooh.
MMS.
Uh-huh.
Video stream on your phone, which you can do. So remember, we're trying to target the whole A to E market, right?
In the telephone, we're like 100%.
92.
92,
Almost.
what do you mean? 92%
We
of
have-
the population
of the
has,
Filipinos
has
have
cell phones. But
Yes.
cell phones that have
Pero marami pa
video that-
naka-3310.
No, hold on.
Oo,
Pero yung SMS
Yun
pa
na nga
nila.
because yeah, there are some people, diba? There's,
Yes, yes.
SMS.
We are 92% penetration in terms of the cell phone.
Okay.
But how many percent of the population per capita, we have, let's say, about 100, I think it's 101, 105 subscriptions per capita. Something like that. We have more SIMs than people.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We have more SIMs than people.
Because
I
the
myself,
men like to buy more SIMs than
I myself, I
for
have
some
6.
reason.
Yeah, I myself, I have 6 lines.
Six lines?
There you go.
why?
2 phones, 6 lines. It's
Two
cheaper.
flying
Nice, yeah, okay. No,
Okay.
but wait. Sabi ni Ed kanina, di ba? Yung iba, naka 3310.
Oh
Hindi ko
yeah,
na nakalimutan.
and they still work.
No, for video.
No, the
But you can do
SMS is still
SMS.
powerful.
SMS
You can
pa
do
rin.
SMS still
You can do
powerful.
SMS.
Okay. So
Lalo na
phones.
ngayong panahon na ang daming only text.
Yes.
Kasi malaking bagay only text eh.
Yes.
Okay. There's this J. Mark Tordesillas.
Si Jemar.
Oo. Ang sabi daw, social media will not get a candidate elected in 2016, but the smarter ones could harness its potential.
Oh,
I think that's another episode, no? The answer to how can the smarter ones harness the
That's why all
potential.
serious campaigners are going back to the table and drawing all these,
Yeah.
True.
possibilities and probabilities and and really determining what are the technologies that we can use from now to 2016. What are the technologies that need to be developed, the applications that, I think the fight for 2016 will see that, the development of applications that are uniquely theirs, and they will not share it. That's why even yesterday's discussion, there was like hesitancy in telling what were the things that were working and those things that were not. Precisely because nobody wanted to show their. I mean, I wouldn't want to show my card on what we're developing because that is really your edge. If there are candidates who are willing to spend money on connecting ground with social media, that's going to be very powerful.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's this book about the social corporation, which basically ang ano niya is social media is social technology. Now, social technology is used to build a community. I'm going to the community. So, the 2016, I think one of the more wiser things to do is the actual from the candidate just not to promote but actually build their community using social media. And what does this mean? This actually means using social media, going offline, establishing relationships with your community, answering not just spouting motherhood statements, but actually making your community for real,
making it real, making it 3D.
Yeah, 3D. You need something that will get you to the people, get the people to vote for you, and get the people.
And why
to
else are you in office? And what?
Diba? I mean, it's for me it's the same old thing that you need to build up your community.
Okay, so I have 1 minute left, and I just want to latch onto that word "build." No, how can social media contribute to nation building? Diba? I mean, apart from politics and Ed, can you be a better nation with social media?
The social media is just a way, is to me, it's just opening the door. But you have to go beyond that. You have to go beyond the pixels on the screen. Social media has to be able to get you off your butt. It's not enough to like something. Social media has to make you want to like something and then do something. It's like you can't just preach to the choir all the time because sometimes that's what it is. You preach to the choir, you preach to the same group. You have to turn your choir into evangelists of sorts to get them to go out and convince other people and do something about it. And that's where social media comes in.
Okay. Malu?
For me, social media is direct democracy. Direct in the sense that you can actually tell your legislator that's not the way to do cybercrime. And which was proven to be done when there was a community that was totally against what was signed by the president. And from that noise, there were people who filed a case before the Supreme Court, and you have now the Supreme Court saying these provisions cannot be. So what am I saying? It can be a source where you can actually have, it's a conduit between the constituent and the elected representative. If the elected representative is willing to engage, then we have that connection.
The democracy is not just in the vote.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, social media is content. It's also about the conversation, and it's also about the connection, which actually you use to build your community. So it might sound profound, but I think in essence that is what the secret of most successful social media campaigns here. They have a good content, they can converse, and they can connect. Connect is very important in that as well. Yeah.
And adding to what the three earlier just said, make it easy for your community. The Apple Watch campaign, which is a good example, it was easy for people to take pictures and post their indignation at their politicians. So advice for our leaders or campaigners eventually in 2016, make it easy for your community.
Okay, thank you very much to our guests tonight, Ed Lingal, Malu Kia,
Thank you.
Juned Sonido, and Pierre Tito Galia. Thank you so much for being here. We'll have you again next week. Ganun na. Party tayo, kulang eh. And thank you for being with us. I'm Pia Hontiveros. This is News.PH. See you again next Wednesday. Good night.